All right, so last time we finished making the ball, or we had just put the ball sprite in. So when you're done with this image editor window, we're just going to close that. And my ball is just going to be right here. And on the layout, you can just physically move it around, put it where you want. So for now, it can just go right there. Basically, the idea of this game is it's going to just be like a ball and paddle game where we're breaking blocks. So we have the ball. Now we'll make the paddle that what the player can control. So once again, to make a sprite, you can either I like to double click out in this gray area, or you can right click. You could say insert new object. We're going to make a sprite. I'm going to call it paddle. Once again, if you forget to label it here, you can label it from the properties window. So I'll do this as an example. Let's say I forgot to label it and it's just called sprite. Okay, so I'll just insert it. Click where you want to put it. Doesn't really matter for now. Our paddle, we're going to resize it to 100 by 10. Now you'll notice when I type in the number, both the numbers change. That's because this keep aspect ratio is checked. So anytime you're resizing something and you want to keep it in proportion, you want that checked. But we're making something kind of a unique size, so we're going to uncheck that. I'm going to change the height now down to 10. Okay, and then click OK. So this is going to be my paddle. We have our zoom up here in the upper right, so I'm going to zoom in so I can actually see my paddle. And then we could just make this a solid color. So we have the paint bucket tool here. Once again, I could just pick like whatever color I want it to be. So I could just do like a light blue or whatever you want. And then what I can do is, oh no, we'll do that later. So yeah, this is right now good, just solid color on this. We'll throw that down. Now remember, I forgot to name my paddle. So what you'll notice is when I highlight it in the upper left, this is the properties for the paddle. If I click on the ball, it'll show the properties for the ball, and you can see the name up here says ball. So if I highlight the paddle, I can just go up here and rename it in the upper left. Okay, and press enter and we're good to go. So now my paddle's done. Now I'm going to make a brick. So once again, insert a new object. I'm going to make a sprite. I'm going to call it brick. Insert, click on the screen to open, resize it right away. This one's going to be 50 by 10. And you know, when you guys are making your own games, I don't mind if you change some of the settings a little bit. So if you want to do a different size, like I'm not going to grade you that your block is exactly 50 by 10. So if you want to modify that a little bit, or you want blocks that are different sizes, like that's totally fine. What we'll do on this block is we'll make it a little bit more interesting. So instead of just doing a solid color, maybe I'll do something like this where I'll start with a solid color. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll make like a yellow and then maybe an orange. And I'll take a paintbrush. And then, you know, I can have just this brush size, but then I could take it and I could maybe just put like some colored dots on it or something just to make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. And then what'll happen is I haven't talked about it yet, but we also have animations. Now this game doesn't really use like a ton of animations or anything, but we can start to kind of play with it a little bit. So the animations here in the upper right, this is where you'd create different animations for your character. So if they had a walking, a jumping, a running, things like that, you would make the different animations here and you would just right click and do add an animation, give it a name. And then for each animation, then you have this animation frame window. Now for this game, we're just going to keep the one animation here, but let's give this brick some different frames. And the reason why we're going to do this is so that we can have some different colored bricks on our game. And if you're doing multiple like different color variations of an object, but still the same object, you don't want to like create separate objects for each brick because that just wastes code, it wastes data. There's like separate objects to deal with. You'd have to code them all separately. You don't ever want to do that. So if I want different colored bricks, but they're all going to act the same, you want to just create different frames for each color of brick. Okay, so what you would do is in this animation frame window, you would just create different animation frames. So you can right click and do add frame if you wanted to, and then you could add that in. But for me, they're all going to look the same, just be different colors. So I'm just going to right click this first frame that I have, and I'm just going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to duplicate that a few times. So I've got 4 frames and they're all orange and yellow. So now all I have to do is I just have to, for each frame, just edit them. And since it's all solid colors, I can just take the paint bucket, let's say I want to do one block that's maybe like a light green. So let's do light green, and then let's maybe do a darker green for the dots. And let's do this one. Let's see, maybe a yellow. No, I kind of already did the yellowish one. We can do like a pink maybe. Here, let's do a pink one. And then we'll do a red for the dots. Okay, and then we'll do the last one. And maybe something purple sounds kind of fun. So you can make these whatever color you want. And I mean, I'm not going to grade you if there's polka dots either. So if you didn't do polka dots, that's fine. I'm just showing you like ways you can make it. So now I've got my 4 different color panels. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the way the animation frames work is that it's going to take this and it's just going to animate through them. So if I were actually to run my game, and I'm just going to do a quick save here just to make sure we get it saved. You always want to get in the habit of saving like every couple of minutes. Otherwise you could lose your data. Okay. And even though it's being saved through Google Drive, it's not going to auto save. So you do have to physically click that. So what I'm going to do is there's just like a play button here, and it'll preview your game. So if I play it, you'll notice really quick, it just animated through and then it stays on the last one. So if you want to do an animation that say repeats, if you click on animation 1 here, animation 1 will have its own properties right down here in the lower right. So it has an animation speed, so I can make it go a little bit faster if I wanted to. I could also tell it to loop. Okay, so if you do something that's like rainbow colors like this, let's say I make it go really fast, like I'll go up to 10. It'll actually look like, you know, if you've ever played Mario and he gets a star, that's kind of how they make that look. So you'll notice it'll just start to flash all the colors. Okay, because it's just looping through the animations. Now, that's not what we want it to do. We want to have separate bricks that are different colors. So anytime you're using the frames not as an animation, but just for different looks, you actually want to put the animation speed down to 0. And then basically that's just going to make it so it doesn't animate at all. And then we just control when we want to play the frames. Okay. So the way that that works is we could copy this brick. And so what I could do is if I hold control on my keyboard, I'll just make another one on here. You basically can make them multiply. So you can do that with any object. If you hold control while dragging it, it'll copy it. And then if I highlight this brick, there is a property on the left side. Okay, and there's one for initial frame. So you can see it right here. I'll kind of click on it right there, initial frame. So right now the initial frame is 0. If I change that to 1, you'll see that the color up here, the color right there actually changes. Okay, if I go down here and I change the frame to something else, it'll change again. And when I run the game, so I'll go up here and run the game, they don't animate at all. They just sit there and stay whatever colors I want. So that's kind of the method you want to use if you just want an object that will act the same, but you just want different colors of it. Okay, so we've got our ball, we've got our paddle, we've got our bricks. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a wall because our ball is going to be bouncing around. So we need a wall to kind of contain everything. Otherwise, the ball is just going to fly off the screen and it's just going to disappear and not do anything. So let's go ahead and make a wall. So I'm just going to right click, insert new object. This can also be a sprite. I'm just going to call it wall, insert it, click somewhere to put it. I think in the instructions, you know, they tell you to give it a certain size, but I'm just going to leave it a square. Like it doesn't matter because we can just resize it on the screen. So I'm going to make my wall like a different color. Maybe I'll do a black wall, paint bucket it in black. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I just want like an edge on this. So you can just grab these edges, you know, these little square edges like right here, these corners, and you can just stretch it larger. And you can zoom in and zoom out by pressing Control minus or Control plus. Also under menu, there is a view tab where you can kind of play with some stuff as well. Basically, you can just decide what you want to view. And there's also some like resizing options, but like pretty much for zooming in, zooming out, you just do Control plus, Control minus to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my walls on, and then that will kind of be the end of this demo. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to Control click, put another one here, Control click, and then another quick trick that you can do with these is you can rotate by kind of grabbing the middle. And if you hold shift, you can make it nice and straight. And I'll put that on. All right, this will be the end of demo number 2, and then I'll get demo number 3 going.